In this first part of today's video, let's talk about the Technical Directive TD015. During the 9th Formula One weekend, the Spanish Grand Prix, the FIA decided to carry out a preliminary examination. This refers to the fact that, during the race weekend which was held at Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya, the International Federation, in addition to the tests concerning the aeroelasticity of the wings, seized the opportunity to carry out several tests relating to the underside of the cars. But first, let's take a look at what skid blocks really are. These are components housed in the skid plate under the floor, where holes are present to measure the wear of the skid, which must not exceed 10% of the plank's thickness, namely 1 millimeter. These are the elements that generate sparks when the floor scrapes the track surface, caused by the friction of the skid block. This situation caused significant issues in Suzuka due to fire risks from dry grass at the trackside. Technical Directive TD015 was also tested in Barcelona. On Wednesday morning, a clarification was issued by the governing body. In Barcelona, the legislative body also conducted thorough analyses of the steel skid blocks housed in the skids of some cars, instead of the titanium ones that have been used in Formula One for several years. There is no news of mandatory checks for all teams, since the aforementioned test is part of the implementation plan defined in Technical Directive TD015. Titanium remains the mandatory material for the entire season. All teams are required to have stainless steel skid blocks available for the remaining races of the 2025 Formula One season, as they could become mandatory if incidents similar to those seen in Suzuka last April occur again. Further tests on the stainless steel component will be carried out at selected events during the remainder of the championship for additional evaluation. Everyone remembers the curious and annoying fires at the track edges in Japan and China. Small flames sparked by the sparks generated by the cars, which repeatedly forced the marshals to show the red flag. The International Federation has long worked to find a solution to the problem, focusing on the titanium skid blocks. These are the metal plates placed on the skid block, responsible for the sparks that flash as the cars pass. The titanium shards they are made of tend to retain very high temperatures when projected trackside, igniting fires on dry grass. The FIA's proposal, tested in Spain, was to use steel plates. Some teams immediately opposed this. First, the steel plates weigh about 750 g more than the titanium ones. According to some insiders, these alternative skid blocks would also wear out faster, causing major headaches for teams regarding car setups. After tests conducted in Barcelona, the FIA reversed its decision. The official statement indicated that following a thorough analysis of the tests conducted with stainless steel plates in Barcelona, the FIA had revised their implementation in Technical Directive TD015. It was specified that titanium would remain the reference and mandatory material for the remainder of the season. However, teams would be required to have steel plates available at every event. The statement also noted that these plates could become mandatory in the event of trackside fires, as had occurred at the Suzuka circuit. Additional test sessions with stainless steel plates would be carried out during the year to gather further data. The FIA wants to ensure that the use of a material with different wear characteristics does not give way to creative design interpretations by teams that could circumvent the issue of skid wear. It is important to note that the plank will remain one of the few elements still present on future cars, even after the removal of the Venturi channels. The decision made by the division led by Nicolas Tombazis, the director of the single-seater department of the FIA, will also have an impact in the 2026 Formula One Championship. At the same time, great effort was made at Montmeló to certify the compliance of the new front wings, according to the new deflection criteria specified in Technical Directive TD018. Compliance was verified at several points during the Spanish Grand Prix weekend in order to ensure that no specifications were in breach of the prescriptions imposed by the technical department of the legislative body. Many were waiting to see the effects of the changes introduced by the FIA during the Montmeló weekend. Between a possible step back for McLaren and a grid that could have become much closer, the team most affected by the new technical directive could have been Ferrari, which risked disqualification in Barcelona. In this regard, one detail is worth mentioning. Shortly before the qualifying session, Ferrari was called to the International Federation's garage for an additional and unexpected inspection. According to Michael Schmidt from German magazine Auto, Motor und Sport, during the free practice sessions of the Spanish Grand Prix, the FIA found irregularities on a deflector present on the front wing brought to the track by the Italian team after the introduction of the new rules on wing flexibility. Maranello's technicians were then able to intervene in time, allowing Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc to take the track for qualifying with a wing legal from a regulatory point of view. Otherwise, given the parc firm rules, the two SF25 cars would have been disqualified at the end of the race, a scenario which, if it had happened, would have sparked new controversies around Ferrari. Already in China, irregular elements had been found on the two Maranello cars, which led to a double zero in the standings. It was a check on the front wings, where a certain amount of tension was observed. Ferrari head of track engineering Matteo Tognanelli was present, and at the end of the inspection he gathered with chassis technical director Loic Serra, deputy team principal as well as the head of the Ferrari Driver Academy, Jerome D'Ambrosio, and team principal Frédéric Vasseur. The reasons behind this situation are unclear. In recent months, we know that the FIA had rejected preliminary tests on this component on more than one occasion, inviting the Maranello team to create a component compliant with the regulations, which evidently was not. It is curious that on Saturday at the Circuit de Catalunya in Montmeló, only Ferrari underwent such a check. We know these are not new components that had not yet been inspected. Therefore, the reasons behind this extra check remain to be clarified, as the Formula One legislator wanted to ensure that the front wings of the two SF25 cars were indeed within the rules. After photographing the specifications post-inspection, nothing new was observed from a technical point of view. We await the Canadian Grand Prix weekend to learn more, where aeroelasticity tests will resume. Ferrari's hopes had been pinned on the FIA's front-wing regulation changes, which they believed could shake up the competitive order. Internally, the Spanish Grand Prix was seen as the potential turning point, a resurrection day for their struggling campaign. Team principal Fred Vasseur had publicly expressed confidence that the clampdown on flexible front wings would hinder rivals like McLaren and Mercedes, thereby leveling the playing field. However, the anticipated shift never materialized. The revised load tests brought about minimal changes, with the competitive pecking order essentially remaining intact, as the top teams were well prepared for the technical directive and had already adapted their designs well in advance. Still, Ferrari came out of the Barcelona Grand Prix with a nice haul of points that allowed the Maranello team to make significant progress in the standings. Ferrari is currently second in the Constructors' Championship, almost 200 points behind a McLaren that is increasingly dominant this season. For Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc, it will now be crucial to maintain this consistency of results to try, who knows, to fight again for something important.